Hello and welcome to another video. Today I'll be showing you how to make these 3 different textured basses. I was inspired to make these sounds after uncovering new techniques researching my Alex Perez tutorial. In fact, I ended up making a whole textured basses Serum preset pack, which includes these 3 presets. These 3 bass presets and instrument racks will be made available for free in the description along with this project file. The pack contains 30 patches with individually designed subs and Ableton instrument racks for every preset. The full pack is available in the description. I'll also be demoing a few of the other racks later in the video just to show some more of the pack. Remember, if you're enjoying this content, like and subscribe as it will help the channel to continue to grow. The drum samples in this project were given away for free with the last video and I'll link them in the description. You can also join my Discord server, which is in the description too. All the different bass instrument racks in this video have been split into different frequency ranges, subs and tops, but I'm going to show you what I've done with the top parts since the subs are more or less pure sine waves. Remember, all these patches are monophonic. For the deep PWM bass, which is this wobbly bass, we have a PWM waveform taken down 2 octaves with the wavetable position being modulated by LFO3. I've pushed the unison up to 7 as well. We've got a couple of filters. Filter 1 isn't doing very much, although a lot of drive is applied. As you can see here, it's a low pass filter with the cutoff being modulated by LFO1, but only very slightly in an omnidirectional way. As you just heard, all it's really doing is taming the high end. In the effects, we have some heavy tube saturation with a low pass filter applied to distortion on post mode so that the nasty high end is cut out, a bit like with the main filter. You can hear it's fairly subtle. Then we have the second filter, which is the thing giving the patch most of its movement. In this case, we have a bandpass 24 filter. I'm not going to demo the effect of this filter by turning it on and off because the distortion makes the sound very abrasive. The bandpass filter is having its cutoff modulated by LFO2 in 1/8 notes on trigger mode. You can see that there's even more drive applied, and this means that I have 3 levels of saturation inside Serum alone. Using multiple instances of distortion or overdrive is essential when designing these type of sounds. You may have noticed that oscillator B is activated, but what I've done here is use macros to introduce an element of FM to the sound. You can see here it says FM amount, and then I've done the same with the noise oscillator as well. Many of the presets in this pack have macros applied, meaning that you can tweak and automate them easily. I'm just going to play around with them. In this case, these change the sounds quite subtly. On the channel, we have an amp for more distortion. As mentioned, I've split the frequency areas using the EQ splitting technique I always use for basses, which I will link a more in-depth tutorial to on screen. For the mid-range band, I've monoed it to ensure that the patch is more mono-compatible. Finally, we have an EQ, cutting the very lowest frequencies out, and then we have some reverb on send A. If we look at the MIDI, the note being played is an octave higher than where I'd normally play it for basses. But this seems to work better for this loop. You can probably hear there's some pitch modulation on the MIDI, which is pulling it down as it's played. So the next bass is this acid reef, which uses this acid saw-ish waveform, which I have taken down by 2 octaves again. And we've got its wavetable position being modulated by LFO3. I've added some unison as well. Then we have a low pass filter with, again, a lot of drive. The filter's cutoff is being modulated by LFO1, which is a ramp up sawtooth shape with a rate of 1/8 on envelope modes. And you may have also noticed the high resonance, which is what gives this sound its acidic quality. In the effects, we have tube distortion with a very similar approach to the previous patch. If we look in the matrix, we can see that LFO2, which is on envelope mode, is modulating Serum's master tuning, like what happens with a kick drum. That quick change in pitch is giving the sound more attack. If we look on the channel, we have an almost identical setup to the last rack I showed you. We've got the amp, we've got the frequency splitting and the monoing of the mid-range frequencies, and then EQ and reverb.
The MIDI pattern follows part of the kick drum pattern. You can see we just have 2 Gs here.
The final complex one patch is the most interesting in my opinion. This is a new take on the sound I made in my first ever tutorial, which I will link on the screen. We have this wah-wah waveform, which I've taken down 2 octaves, with its wavetable position being modulated by LFO3, which is set to 1 bar, meaning that the modulation happens relatively slowly. We have some FM synthesis using oscillator B, a sine wave, which has been taken down an octave. We can see the FM from B knob on oscillator A has been turned to around 10 o'clock, and the level of oscillator B has been turned all the way down so that we have pure FM synthesis. This first filter is a low pass with the cutoff being modulated by LFO1 with a rate of 1/2, and we can see that it's an omnidirectional modulation. The drive again is very, very high. In the effects, we have a hyperdimension for some unison detuning and width, some tube distortion, which helps add extra bite, and then the final filter, which again is being modulated omnidirectionally, this time by LFO2. The LFO is set to 1/8 triplet notes, which is what gives the sound its triplet feel. As you can hear when I take the filter off, it's a lot more abrasive. This time we have macros that add noise. And we can increase the drive on the second filter for more aggression. Again, our top signal chain is very similar to the last patch. Amp, EQ splitting technique, monoing, EQ, and then we have some reverb on send A. So this is the new loop where I've switched out the presets for some different presets just to preview some of the other patches in the pack. They're just 3 presets that I thought functioned quite well in the loop.
As you may be able to tell, the pack is ideal for deep dubstep, but the patches are versatile enough to work in grime, drum and bass, or even bass house. Any questions or feedback, please leave in the comments. The full pack is in the description on my Bandcamp. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again next time.